What's going on, everybody? Amaze the Storyteller here, and I made a very thought-provoking video. However, I didn't change OBS from my gaming profile, so it made me a very small little square in the top left corner of the screen, and until I figure out how to do proper editing, I can't fix that. So, what I want to introduce is a very thought-provoking video for you guys today, where we're going to dissect the morality of the Marines, and specifically, Garp the Fist, especially after the latest chapters. Spoilers ahead, you can skip now that all the individuals that haven't kept up to date with One Piece chapters are gone. Garp is a very complex character, and he represents the Marines, and I saw a lot of creators, a lot of individuals feel conflicted about Garp. Specifically Zonin. Zonin, a great content creator, was very upset that Garp was essentially still a Marine after seeing everything and all the events play out on God Valley. I saw a specific scene that I thought was interesting in the Paramount War. Marco's flying, Ace is on the scaffolding, Garp is crying. Marco is inches away from Ace, and Garp jumps up, pounds Marco. Marco goes flying down to the earth, smashes, and Garp sits on the Admiral's chair. There's a very small moment, if you go back and watch that scene, where the animators choose to focus on the justice symbol on Garp's back. Why is that important? Well, because it's not about good or evil or pirates and Marines, it's about justice. And that is exactly why Garp stayed in the Marines after knowing all the events play out on God Valley. And I see people talk about it a lot. The thing is that as the viewer, you have your own moral compass, and you insert it into the media you enjoy. This is how you decide who should get beat up, who you like and dislike, who you think are complex characters, who you think are good characters, right? For example, we have the great Gear 5th, Monkey D. Luffy, Joy Boy, the Drums of Liberation themselves, manifest into a little rubber boy. And this boy has done objectively great things, objectively good things, things that are of benefit to the civilians in the One Piece world. He's liberated Wano, Alabasta, the East Blue. He's done tons of objectively good things by fighting pirates. He is also a pirate. So in the same way that Garp is guilty of being a Marine who support the Celestial Dragons, who oppress civilians, Luffy is also guilty of raping and pillaging civilians by affiliation to piracy. So when you look at these things, you're inserting good and bad into the individual, but then you're allowing yourself to see characters as guilty by association. But let's critically think about this for a second. We can't look at these characters like that because each individual character is different. A character you might not expect to be brought up in this conversation that I'm going to bring up as one of the morally just, the most morally just, I think, out of all the characters that I've seen, is X Drake. Why is X Drake a staple? Well, he's the leader and captain of SWORD, an organization that denounces themselves of the affiliation of being a Marine and chooses to fight pirates on their terms as vigilantes, so to speak. Now, vigilantism is bad, objectively speaking, because while one individual might be a superhero saving civilians, you have 10 following that are causing more harm than good. So it's objectively bad, whereas you can have a system in place where all parties understand that system and are educated on that system, and that system is there to protect and serve. Vigilantes are not that. X Drake participates both in that system and has granted permission to denounce that system while still being somewhat affiliated, which is infinitely complex to us. We can't really grasp it because we're not in that position. But X Drake does the good of the Marines, he serves civilians, but he doesn't affiliate himself with the Celestial Dragons. Now, Garp is not confirmed to be a member of SWORD, but it's highly, highly, highly inferred that he's a member of SWORD. So by that same logic, if you think it's ridiculous for Garp to stay in the Marines, you're not really critically thinking about the systems in One Piece. You're bringing our systems that we have in the real world and reality into the One Piece world. And that's not fair to the characters of One Piece. While I do agree we should insert ourselves into media, that's what makes it enjoyable. We find these characters relatable and these circumstances relatable and emotional, right? Like the slaves on Marijwal when Fisher Tiger saved them is very emotional for us. We can relate to that because, especially being an American with our history of the Indian slave trade and them bringing individuals from Africa over here as slaves, being tortured by plantation owners, forced to do labor without pay or even any type of food guarantee. And they would rape those slaves and do awful, awful things. The One Piece world has very similar circumstances that jerk our emotions, but we have to remember, One Piece is not America. One Piece is not Australia. One Piece is not Asia. Heavily inspired, but the way the One Piece is written as a story is to be inspired in all of us what we see. That being said, we can't insert ourselves into that because Oda went through the time, effort, and pain to write a well put together story, so well put together, in fact, that in every instance we can relate to it on both an emotional and characterization pool. We understand One Piece because we've been there, we've seen that, we've learned about that, but we haven't because it's One Piece. One Piece has its own complex history. Oda made One Piece have 2 separate calendars, for God's sakes. So we have to respect the story that's being told and written in front of us. So that being said, the way it works is totally different from our world. Not justifying the atrocities that happen. But again, Luffy as the example. Luffy does objectively good things. He took out all of the East Blue pirates that were suppressing civilians and capitalizing off of them. Arlong and Nezumi's relationship, for example, Nezumi was taking Arlong's money and suppressing the Marines from seeing any wrongdoing that Arlong committed. Both parties are bad. Both individuals are bad. Luffy is also a pirate, same as Arlong. Luffy is also a pirate just like Doflamingo. You know why I picked Doflamingo in particular? Doflamingo is a special case within the world of One Piece because he is the only pirate that we have seen sell slaves. In Sabaody, he had his very own slave trading company that he owned, and yes, he sold to celestial dragons, but you can damn sure bet your Betty that the black market was there and that pirates were also there. So pirates participate in the same atrocities that the celestial dragons do. Oda did that on purpose because it's to show that Marines aren't objectively bad and pirates aren't objectively good. Each character is responsible for their own moral compass, and we as the fans judge them based off of their actions, not by who they're affiliated with. But what makes it a good story is that we do get emotional by who they're affiliated with. We become hyper-fixated on titles and associations, rather than looking at the actions of each individual character. So when we look at the actions of Garp, what has Garp done that has told you he's an unreliable, snaky, atrocity-committing character? Nothing. Objectively nothing. He helped take down one of the baddest pirates on God Valley. When that pirate was also, spoilers ahead, Dami reversing and asking for help. So a good guy like Rox, not objectively, but we see Rox as this character that is good. He does good things. He fought Emu. He fought Saturn, who we know are objectively bad. And by that admission to kill him, Garp and Roger both tried to save Rox from being possessed and killing him so that Rox did not kill his family. That is a morally good thing that Garp did, right? So I haven't seen any evidence that Garp does wrong. He's following his own moral compass, and it says it right there on his back. It's not about good. It's not about evil. It's about justice. Okay? Being a pirate means that you are committing piracy. Objectively bad. Marco was trying to save a pirate who committed piracy. Both are pirates. Garp smashed the pirate down in order to preserve another pirate's execution. Objectively good. They have these laws in place. You break those laws, you know the consequences. Adhering to those consequences is justice. Okay, whether or not it's about good or evil is irrelevant. Ace committed piracy. The consequence is execution. Execution needs to be sought. Garp is conflicted because it's his grandson, and that's what muddies the waters. Garp is conflicted about being a Marine because of the atrocities committed on God Valley, where the Celestial Dragons have the Holy Knights hunt down civilians for show. Garp is very conflicted about that. He doesn't adhere to being a Marine because he thinks the Marines stand for protecting the Holy Knights and the Celestial Dragons. He adheres to being a Marine because of justice, because he's allowed through the systems in place to carry out justice against those who oppose that system. The Celestial Dragons also oppose those systems. Dragon saw it, and he tried to do something about it and save civilians and was punished for it. Garp freed him. Objectively good. Garp is not adhering to the Marines so he can serve the Celestial Dragons. It's so he can preserve the systems that are correct and build up the next generation to follow their moral compass and save civilians and bag up pirates who are objectively causing damage. These pirates are causing damage. Doflamingo needs to be captured. There needs to be a system in which it can keep Doflamingo accountable for his actions, which is justice. Whether or not you're a Marine is irrelevant. It's just that the systems that are established created the Marines to maintain order. That's just what's there. Now, that being said, Sword is established, which allows you to essentially ditch the Marine affiliation when it's convenient for you and hunt pirates anyway. So you don't have to serve under the Celestial Dragons. Objectively good. Garp is also associated with that to some level. They came to save Colby. Garp led that charge in place of X-Drake, who was not present. That happened. The point is that when we feel for these characters, because we're the audience, we insert ourselves into the media we're consuming. We insert ourselves into what Luffy does. Yeah, Luffy beat Kaido's ass. He suppressed the civilians, poisoned them with the smog, and took the food and resources away and made them starve, and then fed them these bad devil fruits that made them laugh and smile while they're suffering. Cruel fate. Take him out. Take out Doflamingo, who turned anyone he didn't like into toys and made them be forgotten about by their families, or fate worse than death. Beat his ass. Right? So we see Luffy as objectively good when he's associated with pirates that rape citizens, that sell citizens as slaves to Celestial Dragons to profit. Pirates are not excused, just like the same way that Marines aren't excused. But Garp's character being affiliated with Marines and being a high-level executive amongst the Marines is not something that we need to judge Garp's character by. It's not. It's irrelevant. Garp is playing into the system that exists that is more powerful than himself. Garp is a powerful being, but so are the Holy Knights who are immortal. It's about picking your battles and sticking to your moral compass. Garp could try to fight all of Marijois, take out a couple of Holy Knights, maybe even a few. He's not going to get to Emu. He's not going to stop this system from creating itself. He's not going to wipe out an immortal being that has existed since the beginning of One Piece's calendar. He's just not. He's one guy. So he could waste a lot of resources and possibly not even get a victory doing that, or he can pour all of the resources in his disposal to protecting the citizens so that they can live somewhat decent to good lives. And he can ensure, with his position of power, that those citizens are justly protected from tyrants coming to take their resources. Now, switching the pendulum. I talked a lot about dismantling this idea that Garp is bad because he's a Marine. But there's still some questions to be asked. Why didn't Garp save Wano from Kaido? Garp certainly has the power, even in his old age, to rival Kaido. To beat Kaido. I have no doubt in my mind that if Garp and Kaido went fisticuffs, Garp's coming out on top. I have no doubt in my mind that if Aokiji, let alone Garp, if Aokiji went over there, he could rival Kaido's power. Maybe not. Maybe not. He could certainly wound Kaido enough right? From what we've seen, he could certainly do something to save the civilians of Wano. But they didn't, because Wano is an isolated nation, not affiliated with the world government. Is that something we need to take into account about Garp's character? No, because Garp is pulling his resources to where he can feasibly manage. What if Garp gets there with the Marines, and instead of meeting Kaido's beast pirates, he meets the citizens of Wano? Now he's going against his character. Now the citizens of Wano are attacking the Marines. And the Marines, and Garp as its head, risks retaliation of those citizens. He risks the Marines losing their cool and firing on citizens, which goes against everything Garp stands for up until this point in the story. So that's why he wouldn't go to Wano. That's why it makes sense, but because we get emotional, we see the turmoil going on in Wano, we assume all characters are as ambient as us, or omnipotent as us, because we see everything. We see it all. Garp doesn't. Garp knows, in his mind, that Wano is safe. Wano has Odin. Wano has incredibly strong samurai. That was the first thing that was stated about Wano. That Wano has incredibly strong samurai that you don't want to go up against, who do have Conqueror's Haki or Ryo Haki. So why, if you're Garp and you have these resources and the whole world is burning because of the age of piracy, would you pull resources and risk going to an isolated country not affiliated with the world government? Why would you risk going to that isolated country and try to liberate it from an unknown force? Because you don't know at this point necessarily that Kaido has taken over all of Wano. From your understanding, Kaido upholds a small region of Wano and Odin is still there. Maybe they have some kind of agreement. Now you're going to risk taking on both Odin and Kaido. There's so many possibilities. It's not worth the risk. And the intel was there. CP0 was there making deals with Kaido. So they could have eschewed all intelligence going back to the Marines. There's no telling how many levels of miscommunication there would have been, or at least doctored information leaving Wano back to Marijwal or back to Marine HQ, where Garp would have heard about it. You know, they're sitting there talking to Sengoku, and Garp's like, Sengoku, man. You know, maybe we should check on Wano. How are the citizens doing there? And Sengoku's like, dude, they got Odin and Kaido there. And from what I've seen and heard, they've got a great mutual relationship. We could end up having to face both of those superpowers and the citizens to try and liberate that for no real means. It doesn't make sense. I know from our standpoint, because we've seen the suffrage, it does make sense. The Marines wouldn't have seen that. CP0 was already there conducting research and, investigations, and we saw how that turned out. They were doing dealings with Kaido. So, all the things that we see or perceive as negative at the highest level of the Marines come down to us inserting ourselves in that medium, where we're not necessarily in, because Oda has done his job laying out the story on how it is. But we're still adding a level of perception. We're still adding a level of perspective. And it's our perspective that we are looking at it from a subjective standpoint, not an objective standpoint. The objective standpoints are all there, written out in plain writing in front of us. But Oda is a very good writer. He leaves a lot of things ambiguous. He leaves a lot of things open-ended, and we then make that interpretation from those inferences about who the good and the bad are. Garp is not bad. Garp might not be good, but he's justice. That's what he represents, is justice. That's why his character exists as powerful as it is, because he's not representing the good of the Marines. He's not representing the bad of the Marines. He's representing justice. If you're asking yourself, who's a representative of the good within the Marines? Well, it's T-Bone. T-Bone represents the good of the Marines. Well, who represents the bad of the Marines? Captain Morgan, Nezumi, right? And we've seen more examples of bad Marines than we have good Marines, because as a premise, protecting and serving citizens on the seven seas is a good premise. That's something we relate to immediately. But Oda is showing us it's more complex than that. There's corruption. There's also objectively good things the Marines are doing. It's not black and white. Nothing in the One Piece world is black and white. It's scenarios, circumstance, and most importantly, character. And that's what this video comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is character. Luffy's character, morally and objectively good most of the time. He eats too much, and that costs a lot of citizens resources. He's probably made a couple of citizens starve to death, and the damages he's caused to civilians is a lot while he's fighting other pirates and Marines. Garp, objectively, morally good. We've seen him do a ton of good. We've seen him fight the heads and representatives of the pirate era. The same pirate era that brought about atrocities like Doflamingo, like Captain Kuro, like Arlong, right? These individuals like Don Craig, who are tyrants, who are trying to gain as much power, raping, pillaging, selling slaves. Awful individuals. Garp has taken on the representatives of those movements in order to suppress and make those movements lose meaning so they stop continuing that cycle. Because you can't have Garp work on the internals of the Marines while you have the externals of the pirates committing atrocities. You've got to pick and choose those battles, otherwise you spend too many resources and you yourself fizzles up. But if you take out Roger, you take out Rocks, you take out Doflamingo, you take out Kaido, Big Mom, Luffy, then, and only then, now that you've cut the head off the serpent, will the body follow. And that's Garp's mission. It's justice. It's not good. It's not bad. It's justice. So anyway, guys, let me know what you thought about this premise. I thought this was a cool way to kind of bring up the conversation of good and evil within the One Piece world. I hope you guys watched the video all the way through. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe for me, guys. It helps out the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next thought-provoking video. Bye-bye!